have a driver promotions test today. Part of that test is they do a written portion and then they do a skill scenario. So we actually go over to the high school. That way we can get our apparatus kind of out of the roadways. And we've got two really good hydrants over there with good water pressure, so they can hook our engines and hoses and stuff up to the hydrant. So we use the high school. It's just a big space for us. We don't really have a training center or like a training field here in the city. And so anytime we can go over there and use it, it's a big open parking lot. So we go over there and train and hook all of our stuff up and flow water and do a hose training, scenario-based training, all that kind of good stuff. So working with two hand lines, simulating if we were like a structure fire. This would simulate a guy being inside of a house or inside of a structure. His job is to be able to pump him water off of our engine. Obviously the engines only have a few hundred gallons of water. One of our engines actually carries 1,250 gallons of water. A lot of engines carry between 500 and 750 gallons of water. But you use that water in a hurry. It goes away pretty quick when you're flowing multiple lines. And so the big yellow hose that you see on the ground, that's what we actually hook up to our fire hydrant. And so that's how we replenish our water and make sure that we have enough water to perform all the firefighting activities that we got to perform. This is our pump panel. This is where that driver is going to operate for the duration of any incident that's any type of firefighting activity. So that's how we get water to all of our different hoses, all of our different discharges. We can use water, foam. As you see, the hose over there that I was talking about hooks up to the fire hydrant. It hooks into the pump. It not only replenishes our tank that we've emptied, but it also keeps us a continuous water supply so we don't run out. You see all the gauges, right? All the little white gauges with the little dials on them. So all of that is reading pressures off of our water. The way it works is you've got a pressure that comes off of this fire hydrant, comes out of the main that's in the ground. And so you have an intake pressure that's coming off of this hydrant, right? Well, when you start opening multiple lines, that pressure drops. So part of that driver's job is to make sure that the hand lines that you have on the ground or any line that you're flowing has the constant pressure that you need in order to actually flow water. If you have a really low pressure, you're gonna get like a little stream out of that hose and you're not gonna be able to fight fire. That's part of this driver's job, is to monitor its pressures. That's when that pump, you'll hear that pump rev up. He's basically increasing the pressure, decreasing the pressure. If you put too much pressure on the line, you're gonna wear your guys out on the end of that line. So trying to find that happy medium of the correct pressure versus your guys tiring out. It's hard enough with all your gear on, you know, making a push into a structure. You can't see, zero visibility, you don't know what it looks like inside. But once you get to the fire, you don't want to be too crazy tired. You're not gonna last very long.
Yeah, so all these hoses will have to be drained in order to get them back on the engine. We don't want any air in the lines, we don't want any water in the lines. So we'll use a couple different tools to get that water out. You can walk the lines out like Firefighter Judd's doing. We actually use, for the larger hoses, we can use what's called a hose roller. It clamps onto the hose on one end and you walk it out to get the water out of the larger hoses. So what the driver's doing right now is we're actually going through a scenario where it's as if the firefighter that's on top of the engine doesn't know how to use the deck gun. So he's explaining to him how you operate it, how you use it, and then he's going to pull a couple of levers, and it's going to give water to that deck gun there, so we can start flowing. So flowing our deck gun is actually going to empty your tank a lot faster than it would flowing a regular fire hose. You're just putting out more gallons per minute than you would with a normal hand line or a normal nozzle. So the test here for the driver is for him to hook up to the hydrant with our supply hose, which is the big yellow hose there, and to start flowing water from the hydrant to the engine before we run out of water on the deck gun. So the lights on the side of the engine there, you can see the yellow light that's blinking. Those are normally green, blue, yellow, and red. Once you get to red, that tells you that you're running out of water. So that's a water tank level for this particular engine. So you see the driver now turning on the fire hydrant. We'll get water into the pump. The bleeder valve that you see there, we keep that open when we supply the engine with water from the hydrant. That makes sure that we don't have any air in the line. Air in the pump could potentially be dangerous to the pump. So we keep that valve open so that we drain all the air out of the line. And then once he has a water supply established, he'll introduce water into the pump as well as to replenish our tank, but that's going to allow him to continue to flow that deck gun there. So if we were on a real fire ground, now that we have a water supply established from the fire hydrant, we can run that deck gun pretty much non-stop, continuously. Where it gets tricky is when you start having additional hand lines or additional fire hoses coming off of the apparatus. You still have to make sure that you've got an adequate amount of water, but you can still control your pressures so that you don't overtake the fire hydrant, so that you're not putting out more water than what the fire hydrant is able to supply you. So some people will actually tell you that being a driver on an apparatus is the hardest job on the fire ground, which in all reality, it really is. They have a continuous job throughout any scenario, making sure that the guys have continuous water to do the firefighting that we do, making sure that you don't damage your pump, damage your apparatus. And they do more than this. They'll set up fans, they'll set up ladders, they'll set out tools for the firefighters on the fire ground. The first 5 minutes on any fire ground for a driver is the most crucial. That's when they're really, really busy. They're setting out, all the tools. They're establishing a water supply so that, everything that we do as firefighters inside of a structure, outside of a structure, they're kind of like a support for those guys. So what he's doing now is he's actually shutting down his pump, shutting down the deck gun. And what Captain Stevens is doing is he's kind of going through the scenario with the driver, kind of explain, hey, you've done this, you've done this, you've done this step, you've done this step, and kind of going through what the next steps would be. Chief's getting a car wash out of the deal. So you can see the lights again on the side of the engine there. Again, that's a tank level light. So as you can see with the water supply that we've established, we're able to replenish our tank. The reason we do that is in the instance that fire hydrant gets damaged in any way, we lose pressure out of that fire hydrant, we lose water out of that fire hydrant. What they've done now is they've replenished the tank enough to where if we've got guys inside of a structure that are still doing firefighting, it gives them enough time to continue firefighting but also get out of the structure. We don't want anybody inside of a structure without an established water supply. You're typically going to use those deck guns on large fires that are going to be what we call defensive fires. So we don't actually have people inside. It may be a building that's got, the whole roof is gone. We may just have lots of fire. So you pull up, use the deck gun, you knock down the energy of the fire, establish your water supply, and then we can continue, firefighting efforts from there. But he did great on that scenario. He did everything we needed him to do. He set up the deck gun, got water to the deck gun, got a continuous water supply established, and from there, on a typical scene, he would start, setting out tools and things like that. Right as they arrive, because there's so many things that they're responsible for getting set up, you'll often see drivers, they jump off and they're walking a little faster. Some of them may be running a little bit, jogging a little bit, but you'll see a guy hooked to a hydrant, he'll get a water supply, and then again, he'll go to the back, he'll grab a fan, he'll grab chainsaws, he'll grab, any tools that may be used on the fire ground, he's gonna pull them out. Say they're driving and we get a bad car accident where it may be, extrication involved, where we've got to use our tools to cut people out of a car. That driver's pulling out those tools and getting them ready for all the guys. That way they can kind of focus on the vehicles, come up with the game plan for what they're gonna do, and then when they turn around, they've already got tools ready for them. So the driver position is a pretty important position within the fire service. Again, most would argue that it's the hardest job on any scene.